How you doing, everyone? My name is Jamie Gardiner. I'm a full-time coach, high-ticket affiliate marketer, and consultant. I'm about to be on the Online Prosperity Show. I've been involved in online marketing since 2011, and with Prosper, we're going to take a deep dive into my journey and how it's going to impact you with your business. Can't wait to see you there.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we've got someone who embodies resilience, humor, and that never give up spirit. Now, Jamie, how are you doing today?
Prosper, what an introduction. That is amazing. Thank you so much.
I
feel very humbled. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Well, Jamie, we haven't even started yet. If anything, it's only going to get better from here on. I mean, obviously, for somebody like yourself, who's gone from being a high school dropout to now coaching over 917 students, generating millions in sales, and also receiving the accolade from ClickFunnels 2, Club Award for having surpassed $1 million in revenue through one single funnel. And if you just look above his shoulder there, if you see that record looking, emblem there, that is the 2, Club, and only a few people have managed to bring one of those home. So when I see people like Jamie, I'm literally going to be sitting around taking copious amounts of notes, because he knows a thing or two, about how to create a business that's profitable and enjoyable. But let that not deter you from wanting to listen to this podcast, because I know your ego is like, they're talking millions, they're talking, funnels and things of that nature. Jamie is not your classic overnight success story. I mean, his journey is one of those pivots, setbacks, and also there was a remarkable day that he turned his last $84 into a life-changing breakthrough. Somebody would have taken that $84 and bought themselves drugs, a couple of beers and things of that nature, but he actually, changed that. And obviously, that doesn't come by itself. I mean, from his mom's inspiration when she started an e-commerce business back in 1996, before the internet could even shut up and make that sound, she was already making moves. No wonder the apple didn't fall that far from the tree. And, obviously, the inspiration that his mom went through, starting that business, navigating a few financial hurdles here and there. And finally, he also found his stride with the no-call conversion code, which he's going to be letting us know a little bit about today. So as you can see, Jamie's story will definitely resonate with anyone who's ever doubted or been doubted by people, or has even struggled with their own entrepreneurial journey, because no matter who you are, no matter where you're coming from, you too can do and have a business that's profitable and enjoyable. And he's here to share his highs, his lows, and the very real practical lessons that he's learned about simplicity and just the impact that he's managed to make in business. As I've mentioned, he's mentored and coached over close to 1,000 people, and there's a ripple effect to being in front of that many people. So whether you're looking to just maybe close high ticket sales without that grueling, sales call, or maybe you're trying to build a business that actually aligns with the lifestyle that you want, I think Jamie's insights are going to be pure gold. And I want you to stay tuned, because this is your not so obvious connection between, how to start, scale, and grow a business that's actually profitable and enjoyable, and you looking at exactly who you are and who you are looking to become. And I know there's going to be a few lessons that might just change the way you look at your own path. Now, Jamie, please give me my accolade for having given you such an amazing introduction. I'm waiting.
That is incredible. I'm gonna have to save that as a soundbite. That's gonna be my new ringtone. That was amazing. Very humbling. I thank you for your very warm welcome, and it's interesting when someone is reflecting back some of the things that have happened, and it's not through your own voice, how it sounds really intriguing actually when you say it like that. And I don't say that with a sense of ego. It's just that it's quite a humbling experience to kind of think, wow, I have been through some stuff actually. It's been quite the journey, come to think of it. So look, I appreciate you having me on, and thank you for the very, very warm and very humbling introduction. And it's absolutely awesome. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I will just take that as my own 2 club accolade, being the best introducer of podcasts. We could just end this episode right now.
Yeah. I mean, they hand these things out like candy, so you can go grab one if you want.
I can see the humility kicking in. But obviously, Jamie, your journey, from my understanding, started as far back as 1996. I mean, way before people even understood what the internet was and things of that nature. That time sort of left an impression on you. Tell us a little bit about what was going on and how.
Yeah, good question. So it was probably the last year or two I was at high school, and as you sort of alluded to, my mother set up an e-commerce store, and it was 1996, and so we, like, bearing in mind there was no Shopify, there was no WordPress, there was no Google didn't actually exist back then. So we had AOL, Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves, Yahoo. I think that was the main ones. AOL Online, I think, or AOL, and so, and Amazon wasn't an international entity. They were small. They were selling in the States only, and so not the global giant. So it was before all those types of things, and so it was hard, really, really hard. In fact, coming from a very small town in New Zealand, the local banks and everything, once she had orders, they would fax the order through. She would then have to manually take that to the bank to then cash the not the check, sorry, the credit card. And then she'd send the product off and things like that. And eventually things became automated over time. But within about 4 or 5 years, heading towards the dot-com bubble, sort of circa 1999 to 2001-ish. And needless to say, with the online expenditure, her business took off. And she was doing exceptionally well, and had managed to automate a whole lot of things. And then over the next few years, I saw this lifestyle that was probably quite enviable to a lot of people. And what I mean is, she was working for an hour or two per day. And at that stage, at the peak of the business, she had everything automated. So an email would come in saying, congratulations, you've got an order. So the money was in the bank. That email would then automatically forward to a shipping house, would ship the product off automatically. And then when supplies got low, that would automatically send to a manufacturer, which would then manufacture more of the product and send it to the warehouse. Sorry, and so that meant that her main kind of business day was just looking after customer service. And I thought, circa a couple of years later, would have been 2011 at the time, and so having gone from high school dropout, I worked a range of weird and wonderful jobs, and I eventually found myself in finance, and it was quite a competitive branch of finance. It was derivatives trading, so contracts for difference, we call them down here, but think futures, options, things like that, which is still bitterly ironic because I really can't add two numbers to save myself. I don't know how I ended up landing in there, but I did really well, did enjoy it. And it was a very stressful role. We had gone through the global financial crisis 2008, and we'd also seen all sorts of things. There was something called a flash crash. There was the Fukushima power plant, which that was 2011. So it had all sorts of market turmoil, and anytime for my particular company, anytime there was market turbulence in the markets, it meant that we were just under a lot of stress. And by contrast, I would see my mum having 12-ish years into the business at that point, and she was kind of like traveling around the world. She was had managed to outsource a lot of the customer service stuff as well, so she'd just get money and then pretty much do nothing and pay bills at the end of the month, and that was it. And I thought there's a disconnect here. Here I am, like, slaving away. Like it was like I loved it because I really wanted to get into the financial markets, but it was hard. Like it was pretty intense. And I'm like, here I am doing this stuff, but I'm earning this much money, and then that's about as much as I will ever earn. And then here she is, just off, gallivanting around the world doing all this cool stuff. And so that was my inspiration. She still is. And so she ran that business up until 2021, where she eventually sold out of the business, which is pretty incredible to have run that for 24 years. But that was my inspiration. I got involved in 2011. I thought, how can I leverage what I'm doing to help other people out. And at the time, like I say, I was working in financial markets. I decided to bring what I was doing for my day job online, and try to set up blogs. Failed miserably. Changed course about 1 billion times. Tried all sorts of things like CPA marketing. What else? I can't even think of the list of it. Got on a Kindle at one point as well. Tried FBA for a very short time. Started investigating and actually going in that pathway. Set up 3 e-commerce stores about sort of 2014, 2015. Ended up getting into a mountain of debt, personal debt, unsecured. Went bankrupt 2015. Had job after job that just either the company went bust or something didn't go right with the work. Found myself unemployed yet again. And then found another stable job. And then in 2017, I managed to get one client because I was running ads with all my experience from my e-commerce days. I managed to figure out that there is a definite need out there to generate leads for businesses. So I started doing that. And then I found one client. They paid me $1,000 per month. And I begged and pleaded with my wife. I said, can I please leave work to try and pursue this? Because I'm done. I really don't want to be in the workforce anymore. And she let me do it for some weird reason. I don't know why. It's kind of crazy. But 2017, exceptionally hard year, very, very low financial points in that year. And to experience being broke yet again after bankruptcy, it was pretty hard. Same with 2018. Although I did find some traction, eventually I ended up white labeling for other agencies. And so I was just a freelancer for them. And that worked out okay for a little while until such time as I was working for a large agency. I was getting around about 90% of my income from this one agency. And unfortunately, just leading up to Christmas 2018, they ran into financial difficulty. And so I've been working pretty vigorously for them for the month of December. And yet again, I found myself broke because they unfortunately couldn't pay their invoices to their contractors prior to Christmas. Thankfully, they were in communication. They didn't just shirk their responsibilities. They did actually pay eventually. It just took them a little bit longer than anticipated. But it left me vulnerable. I realized that in order for me to control my income, I'm not going to be able to do that if I'm waiting for a client to pay. So I either need to change that model and bill up front or get out of it altogether. And I thought maybe it's time I just built a personal brand instead. And so I leveraged what I'd done in the past and started getting into affiliate marketing. And I royally sucked at it. I was absolutely crap at it. Didn't really know what I was doing. And although I had all the skill and I'd sold a bunch of stuff offline and things like that, I just didn't know how to bring that online. And then, as you sort of alluded to in that very amazing intro before, there was actually a period, it was around about 7 days late 2019, where it's like the penny just kind of dropped and the stars aligned. There's a few things that came into alignment. I'm more than happy to sort of expand on that if you like. But long story short is I went from my last $84, and I say that because I know it probably sounds odd because I'm married and my wife was working, but she'd also been supporting me financially for many years at this point while I'm like trying to do the struggling business in the background. And so that was it, last legs. We cannot go any further. I have to go get a job if this doesn't work type stuff. And then so there's no more money as far as I was concerned. Plus, because of my bankruptcy, we actually had very separate finances. And and then bang, all of a sudden, 7 days later, I had my first $1,000 a day online. And I was probably going to start getting emotional thinking about it. And then had another one the next day, first 10K month. And then, the rest is history from that point on. Just kind of leveraged win after win after win after win to sort of snowball into what it is today type stuff. So I feel like I talked way too long for what was meant to be like a simple question. I'm sorry, but anyway, it kind of gives you a bit of background.
Hey, listen, my friend, to whom much is given, much is required. You have all this lived experience and it just cannot be fitted into a 1-minute TikTok video. So you can only imagine. And thank you so much for taking us on that journey. But I wanted to take you back a little bit because you did leave a lot of, open loops there. So in 1996, I just looked it up and I'm very certain about this. And I'm going to reference to my notes. Okay. There were only 257,601 websites in the whole entire internet. And to give perspective, as of 2023, 3,992 websites are created daily, meaning every minute, 2,772 websites are created per minute. Now, what was mom doing at that particular time to be in the first 2572 club that she created a website of her own? And hats
Wow.
off to that.
I did not know those stats. That's absolutely incredible. I'll have to tell her this after I get off there. That's absolutely
Get her to
amazing.
watch this. Mom, seriously,
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. I mean, she very much was a pioneer back in the day, and it quickly turned once business started having some level of success. I think the local banks, instead of her driving in, they started setting up a phone line, and then eventually, years later, they had an online platform, things like that. So it was rough going in the early days. It really was, and it was not something that I think anyone, like, there's no mentor. It's not like she could go, oh, hey, how do you set up this thing? It was just kind of things she just kind of figured out on her own accord, and it was hard. Like, it was a lot of hard work, and I think that was, and you know, it's perhaps another side topic we can go into. But when you start doing this kind of like online stuff, and it's you take the plunge from, say, working full time in a traditional sense to that type of environment, a lot of people can't understand it, so they just think you're sitting there playing on your computer, and she'd often get quite condescending remarks from her friends and family and just strangers, stuff like that. And it was sort of like, it was a betrayal of the truth, because she would work 15, 16-hour days sometimes, and I'd wake up early and she'd be already on her computer scribbling away and trying to figure things out, trying to get SEO rankings, and you know, trying to figure out how to optimize certain things within the site. She did have some help as well. She had met someone online who she ended up going to Atlanta, Georgia, to go visit at one time, who was having to know a little bit about websites and coding and things like that. So she did have some help, but it was pretty small amounts of help back in those days. So yeah, that's an incredible stat. I had no idea that though.
Absolutely. I mean, of the 257 websites, one of them, 257,000 websites, one of them was hers. The rest were the platforms that she was trying to get onto, you know, like maybe the Yahoo and the payment gateways or whatever it is. So you can only imagine there wasn't that much of a pool that was working there. But obviously you seeing that sort of ignited and put that seed into your head that this could be something that you could do. See, some people are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. You literally were born with the mouse in your hand. So if you literally can,
that's a good analogy. I like that.
Absolutely. You see, if you can see your parents do certain things, and then you go into school and nobody's teaching you what you're seeing happening at home, do you think that's why you now had that disconnect and you dropped out of school, because it no longer made sense that you're doing all this, yet the future is moving in a whole different direction altogether?
Yeah, I would love to say that's the case, because it makes me sound like I'm really smart and I could foresee the future. But what actually happened was, I had very successfully created a false belief that I was very stupid, and I that manifested basically because I didn't try, and it wasn't that I didn't try; it was just that I would try, it was too hard, I didn't get it, and then it was so frustrating and in my mind humiliating to not understand things, and it wasn't until I left school that I took a couple of courses, and one of which was like a pre-apprenticeship course for an engineer. And I started realizing how my brain absorbs knowledge. And once I did, it was like the Rubik's Cube finally clicked into place. I'm like, oh, yeah, get this down. And so then I became a knowledge sponge, and I thought I can learn how to learn stuff. And once I understood that, I was away laughing. And so, yeah, as much as I'd love to say, oh, it was because I had some foresight into the future, and this is how I predict things are going to be. It was mainly because of that, but also a sidebar to your question as well. I did, from a very, very early age, have a belief that I wasn't going to be stuck in the workforce for a long time. And I don't say that with any ounce of disrespect to anyone that is currently gainfully employed. I was for many years and had many different jobs across many different industries. There's nothing wrong with it. I think for me, I had, rightly or wrongly, I had witnessed a lifestyle that defied what the tradition was. And the lifestyle was work an hour or two a day, go do what the heck you want, travel where you want, eat what you want, hang out with who you want. And for the record, I want to make this abundantly clear. Neither of my parents are, they're not wealthy. And even at the peak of Mum's business, it was more because the income was on a semi-ish passive basis that she was able to do that. It wasn't necessarily that she was making, millions of dollars per year or anything like that. It was more just that the income was enough to live a cool lifestyle, but not having to devote 8 hours per day to work to go do that, if that makes sense. So yeah, anyway, hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. And just, obviously you can engage this question or not. What is Mum doing at the moment?
She's well and truly retired now, so she doesn't do too much. She does a bit of gardening and does a little bit of not much. Unfortunately, she's a little bit unwell at the moment, so it's kind of hampering things a little bit. But yeah, she's just living a pretty relaxed lifestyle these days. A little bit of Tai Chi.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it is from the toils that she did in that past that actually then you sort of saw what could be possible. But before you ventured online, I'm starting to see how much of a sucker for punishment you are, Jamie. You went into derivatives trading. And, something that obviously somebody who really needs to have a grasp of their mathematics, should jump into. I mean, first of all, was that just because it was an option that was there? Or was there a lot of thought that actually went into that? Because
a lot of thought, yeah. So I was hanging out with a friend of mine recently, and he's 10 years my junior. And so the stories as they came about was like, it kept, from me at least, I was like, oh, yeah, so I used to work for this place. It's around about 2 years, blah, blah, blah. And then after a while, he was joking like, how old are you? Like, how many jobs have you had? I'm like, well, I left school when I was 17 and went straight into the workforce. I mean, I didn't go to university. Like, of course, I've been working for a long time. Like every 2 years, I changed direction pretty much. And so, but to answer your question, that was very deliberate. So when I moved from New Zealand over to Australia, I had been working in a gold mine in New Zealand, driving dump trucks. And I thought initially I would go to Melbourne, where I'm currently based, stay here for 6 months and then travel up to Western Australia, where a lot of the mining boom is. And that didn't quite transpire. And so I thought, how do I leverage something, my brain, to go do things that I actually want to get into? So my first transition was into real estate. I started working as a leasing agent, and it was my foot in the door to like an admin type role. Did that for about 2.5 years. And then when I discovered that I love trading, I found the company that I wanted to work for. And it was, I set in motion a plan that could have taken a year, could have taken 5 years. I just would have kept going until I made it work, basically. And so all it was is that I discovered the company I wanted to work for. I found their, from what I can see from an outside perspective, their ethics and the direction of the company seemed to be what I aligned with. I thought I'd actually met a couple of people just through social connections and different random things in life, very serendipitous. And I like the people. I thought the people are in alignment with myself. So I made the choice I was going to work at this company. Bearing in mind, no degree, absolutely horrendous at mathematics on all levels. Like I can't add +2, to be perfectly honest. No real office experience other than this one job. So there was no real reason why I should have ever got a job there, or why I thought I was ever qualified for it. And I did start getting interviews. Every time one would come up on Seek or whatever, I would apply, and then a recruiter would often see how enthusiastic I was, so they would often push me forward to an interview, and then I'd get some of their, never say that word, I get rejected. Summarily, whatever that word is, rejected. And then I'd go home with my tail between the legs, and then I'd think, okay, well, how do I get a foot in the door here? And I went to, I think it was like 4 or 5 interviews over the course of 2 years. Whenever an opportunity would arise, I would apply for it. And eventually it got to this point where it was 2008, and basically I'd been through multiple interviews. They had recognized me because I kept coming back because I'm crazy. And basically I was adamant I was going to get this job. So I quit my job in hopes that this would happen, and basically never heard back from the recruiter pretty much. And I was like, this is getting frustrating, trying to contact them. And then eventually I rang the company directly. They said, look, I'm really sorry. We actually told the recruiter some time ago that unfortunately gone with other candidates. I'm like, no worries at all. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And for some reason, I guess because they were really short-staffed, they knew the markets were starting to become very turbulent. They decided to give me a shot. I was like the last cab off the rank, and they decided to give me a shot. And I got the job, stayed there for 5.5 years, and quickly realized that I'm an underdog in this place. So I better make sure I'm a subject matter expert so I can sustain. So anyway, sorry, long way of saying, it was a very deliberate plan to get into that. So
Absolutely. And I'm intrigued because with every sort of answer, you're really opening us up to the world that, you paved the way to who you've now become. But one of the things that you really sort of stuck on was, you going through some financial setbacks. And obviously, when people go through things like that, they obviously curl into a fetal position. You faced bankruptcy in 2015, and you just kept moving forward instead of actually giving up on entrepreneurship altogether. And first of all, I might just need to know, what is it that was the thing that was the most driving force? Because as you said, your family was good, everything was well. You could have just gone back to the mines and just done that job, but you kept on going. What was that thing that really kept driving you towards knowing maybe this could work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it reminds me of a quote, and I don't know who said it, but it's basically when you hit rock bottom, at least you're looking up.
Yeah.
And if you're at the bottom of the grave, at least you're looking up, basically. And so I think after the bankruptcy, I went through a lot of mindset stuff, and I was suicidal for a while. Just couldn't really see the point in life, generally speaking, but I persevered. I'm still here, obviously. And I think because every time I'd go to a place of employment, and it might be because I'm entitled, I'm not entirely sure, but what would happen is I would join this place. So I'd think, I should just get a career. I'll do a career. Like it's, a lot of people do okay out of a career. There's nothing wrong with it. I've been in one in various forms for many years. It's okay. And then I got working again, and then it would be the office politics. And I'm like, well, I can't choose who I surround myself with in this environment. If I'm in a job, for example, I mean, I can leave the workforce or different jobs and stuff. I get that, but you still don't have a choice. There's like a team already existing, and you're like the trade-in, and you've just joined this new team, and so you can't control that. And that started to get on my nerves a little bit. I also realized like that no matter how hard I worked, so I was in sales, there's always this thing where I could potentially make the company millions. And I don't say I'm solely responsible for the company making millions, but as a salesperson, you are the one that's bringing in deals, right? And so therefore, as part of the larger team, you help direct some of this cash flow. And then at the end of whatever it was, a quarter or biannually or annually, whatever, like scrapping with your bosses to get this much extra cash, which was already part of your contract anyway. And it's like, why am I fighting so hard? Like, this is just, it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not saying like I could have, like in those environments, I could have done better by myself, but at least it would have been my choice. And I would have been broke because of my choice. I would have been able to, get the client or not because of my choice, not because of some external party that has control over what I do. And so that was it. And like I say, whether it's because I'm ambitious or entitled, I'm not entirely sure, but it just kept popping up for me. I was just like, I just can't, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can be in an environment where I'm giving the best of my life for this much pay in the grand scheme of things, that much pay really. And even if I make it to the end of the year and I get a pay rise, that's cool, but it's still going to be that much, like it's not, we're not talking about, okay, we're going to triple your pay this year. Like, wow, okay, cool. I mean, I'm sure those outliers do happen, but not in my experience. So I just thought, why am I doing this? There's got to be an easier way. And also think like a lot of us, we become so fearful because I will confess that a salary is very comfortable, right? If you're earning 5, 10, whatever it is, plus per month, and every fortnight or every month you get this paycheck, you're like, yes, this is cool. It becomes very comfortable because you know what to expect. And I put this much energy in, I'm going to get this much out. And although I conformed to that for many years, I could see beyond it. I just didn't want to be stuck in that environment where my income was capped out, my freedom was capped. I don't control who I spend my time with, and my energy gets zapped. And I also, the other part, and again, this might be I think it's more of a me issue than a workplace issue, but I also didn't really enjoy the fact that sometimes I had to be professional. And that sounds a bit horrendous in some ways, but if I was in a situation where, I don't know, for whatever reason, a disgruntled client was abusing me, I couldn't just tell them what I really thought because I was under the professional umbrella of the company, which we all are as employees. And of course, as my own personal brand, I still am under that, but I can control whether I would have that person as a client to start with anyway. I couldn't when I was working for someone else because we needed the clients. So it was, a lot of these types of factors just eventually led me to go, it's got to be a different way. And I'm not going to let fear and comfort of the regularity stop me from pursuing what I want to get out of life, basically. Because we're only here for a short time.
Absolutely. And, so many people get caught up in just the schematics of what's happening and not actually knowing what their true north is. And, obviously looking at what you went through, although you keep referring to it as entitlement or whatever it is, I actually think you needed to go through what you went through as somewhat of a rite of passage, because after several pivots, you then landed on something that then really gave you that emotional 1K day, which became a turning point for you because everything culminated in that one particular day. And you almost got emotional while you were talking about that. I mean, I don't know. What's your sort of comment to that sort of
Yeah. It's something that's pretty impactful. I guess when that whole thing happened, as I sort of alluded to before, like I've been living off my wife for a couple of years at this point, financially, and she was supporting me while I was trying to build businesses and stuff like that. And we kind of got to this point where it's like, okay, enough's enough. Like, you can't keep doing this. It's just gonna, we need 2 salaries. We can't live off one comfortably for the rest of our lives. Like, either the business has to work or go back to the workforce. And it wasn't an ultimatum she gave me. We came to this conclusion together, by the way. So I was like, I can't keep doing this to her. It feels just wrong, like really, really wrong. And so down to the last $84. And I think it was interesting because I think the stars aligned in a lot of ways. So a couple of things happened. I got a mentor. We've since become very good friends, and we ended up partnering up to chase the 2 Club Award as well, which was awesome. But I got mentoring, and I guess more importantly than just getting a mentor, I was able to. I don't think I'm an egotistical person, but I think we all carry ego with us, and so I was able to let go of my ego enough to go, you know what? If I knew better, I would have got the results already. I'm just going to, even though it's going to feel really uncomfortable and I feel like I'm going to let go of a lot of things, I'm just going to do what my mentor tells me to do and just execute on the good plan. And so that was one. The other part of it was, from an abundance factor, if you have lived below the poverty line for a long time, and in my experience, at least anyway, I found that I was always like checking my bank account, like, oh, is there an extra debit coming out that I don't know about? Oh gosh, I started like, I became quite paranoid because I had this limited thinking about everything. I couldn't really see how abundant the world really is. And so I had to change the language that I was telling myself. I had to change the way that I would think about these things. And one of the kind of like weird catalysts, it was a weird sort of like timing, but I watched the Tony Robbins video, and one of the things he said about his own sort of experience of abundance was he gave away his final $17 or whatever it was back when he was young to this young boy who was taking his mother out for lunch, and he said he never felt better in his entire life. And then the next day he got a check for $1,200 in the mail, and I really resonated with that. I thought maybe I can replicate something similar. I don't have to give away absolutely everything, but maybe I can replicate it. So that was in the back of my mind. I've been doing a bit of hypnosis. I've been trying to change my language, how I speak to myself, and how I speak openly about things. Because I think we go through life so unconscious a lot of the times. Like we have a habit of saying things in a certain way. And so I was the same. I think we all are. And then once I stopped to go, okay, could my subconscious be seeing this as a limitation of belief? And once I started picking myself up on these language patterns, which, forgive me, I don't have an example off the top of my head, but once I did, then I could start to adjust how I was verbalizing certain things, both internally and externally. So these are kind of the stars aligned. Now, what ended up happening sounds so silly, but I thought I can't necessarily just go and find some young child, take his mum out to lunch and give him all my money, because that's going to be kind of weird. But how can I replicate the essence of that message? And so I took my wife out for lunch, and it sounds really simple because we've been out for lunch many times, but this day was different. I didn't look at my phone. I wasn't like checking to make sure there was extra debits coming out that I was, worried about, because normally I'd be worried about this humiliating point of like me going to pay, and I couldn't pay because my debit card didn't have any money left in it because automatic debit. So that didn't happen. I was just free the whole day. We had a great day. We enjoyed just hanging out. Got KFC for lunch because I'm, that's how romantic I am. And then basically that happened. I felt great. We felt great. And then the next day I had already pre-booked a call with someone, and then we went through a small presentation online, and then through Zoom, and then he paid me $1,000, or it was 963 US, and then had another 100 and something bucks land that day. So it was 1,344 Australian dollars, which I always remember that. And it was life changing because I could feel the essence of it, and it's probably the richest I've ever felt, to be perfectly honest. Like I've had a lot more cash since that point, obviously, but still just that feeling of like something to nothing to something. Also, it's pretty powerful. So.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for taking us through that sort of epiphany journey, because this then showcases how you completely change. Because when you let go of so many things, you actually open yourself up for more to come. And I obviously believe the universe abhors a vacuum where if you because you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands full. Had you been holding on to that $84, you'd have been, like really trying to hold it on, and but since you let go, you literally opened up yourself to a whole lot more, and it came sort of in abundance. And I quite like how this change not only just happened in your bank account, but you literally changed your demeanor, the person who you are, and everything else that came along with it. Because obviously your corporate career with whatever it is that you were doing was all about sales calls, sell, and it was that energy around closing and things of that nature. But you then decided to step from that because now you knew better, and you moved towards the no call conversion process. And obviously this is quite an effective sort of manner. So maybe you can walk us through what this process actually is, so that people can actually see, the stark difference in the person you would now become.
Great question. So it came about only in the last sort of like little while, to be perfectly honest, like maybe a year ago or something like that. And for many years, when I jumped online, so after I had that first call and made my first $1,000 day, that was my MO. Like basically my modus operandi was to find people I could serve, see if they would like to book a call, and if I felt like I could serve them at a higher capacity, I would make an offer, right? And so it was a basic sales presentation. So I did hundreds of those, hundreds. And that was, I was the person that was leading the way with the sales calls when we did that thing for many years until we stopped and we went, okay, let's just try and close via DMs and different things. But I got to this point where, having done thousands of sales calls in my corporate career in different capacities, and then in presentations, all sorts of stuff, and then doing the same thing online, I just got to this point where I'm like, okay, let's say on an average week, I might book 10 calls, just hypothetical, yeah, of course. And my close rate, even if I have a really good week, it might be like 50% close rate, maybe a little bit more, depends on the structure of things. And there was actually a time when I was closing really, really high, like 80+%, but there's some caveats on that one. I was making people go through an application process. It was really stringent. They had seen me in my audience for a long time, so I almost didn't need the sales call at that point, to be perfectly honest. But anyways, typical week, let's say 40 or 50% close rate, a couple of no-shows. And I thought, why? Like, I still have to give my time, and it's not just my time; it's my energy. So I have good energy in the morning, but I suck at the afternoon. Like, I will probably jump off this. I'll go have some lunch, and then I'll go for a nap, right? Because I get a real lull in the afternoon, but in the morning my energy is good, like really fired up. And so I thought, I can't control that. If someone books randomly into my calendar for a sales presentation or whatever, I can't control my calendar, can't control my time. And so I got to this point where I'm like, I'm kind of done with this. I'm a little bit frustrated with people and not rocking up and things like that. And then, like I say, I thought, I'm doing all this for, say, 3 to 4 conversions, hypothetically. And I thought, is it really worth it at that point? Now, I didn't invent doing no calls, by the way. Like, this is not something that it's a masterpiece for me. It's a formulation of mentors, of courses I've been through, of my own experience of learning what to sell, how to sell, all that type of stuff. And I got to this point where I actually closed the deal through the DMs, and kind of, because I was basically in a situation where I'm like, oh man, I've got a couple of things on, I can't really do a call. I knew who this person was, we'd had good rapport online. And so I was like, if you want to just rock out a deal here, I'm happy to. I'm a bit tied up over the next few days. Like, yeah, I want to jump in and send a link. Like, bang. I'm like, it was like $3,000 or something. I'm like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. So for a high ticket, I'm like, okay, it's not bad. And then I started developing that a little bit more. I started selling things like low ticket workshops and masterclasses and all sorts of things just with a Google Doc and a few DMs back and forth with people. And I thought, this is kind of cool. I'm leveraging my time and my energy to do it when I choose to. And yeah, I'm kind of enjoying this. And so the transition from that to that was relatively simple, because once you've got to this point where you've got a relatively warm audience, it's literally about, to borrow kind of like a phrase from one of my mentors, it's like you're just moving the goalpost, or the information line, I should say. So typically in a sales presentation, it's like, let's say if this situation wasn't in this environment and somehow we were in a sales presentation, it would be like, oh, okay, I have a little bit of knowledge where I jump on and it's like, hey, let me take a deep dive into your business and what are you doing, blah, blah, what's your pain points, and all that type of stuff. Still works, by the way. I have nothing against sales calls, but all it means is that we need to present information prior to that person leading up to making a decision. So in your content and DMs, whatever your information, they get to know you, they start to consume you more. That's the whole goal. It's applying certain rules, like the 4-7-11 rule, which is something I read about in a book from Daniel Priestley, oversubscribed, Australian guy in the UK, I think. But it's actually from Google survey. And so 4-7-11 basically means that in order for someone to build trust with you, and I guess in rapid succession, they either need to see you in 4 different places, spend 7 hours consuming your content, or have 11 sort of touch points with you as a personal brand, or brand, generally speaking. Now you can combine all 3, or it can be one individually, right? And so I'm leveraging those types of things to make sure that I'm in front of my audience, and then over time, the equity within my audience builds up because of the goodwill that I'm placing there. And so that means that from an emotional standpoint, I'm giving out a lot, and then I'm only taking them basically by comparison. And even when I'm making offers, typically they are loaded with value anyway. Like I believe that people that jump into my stuff, they're going to get way more value, going to be left way better off than they were without it anyway. So that's kind of my belief, and what tends to flow through within my content, and how I'm sort of structuring things in front of my audience as well. So sort of how it became a thing, really.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that. Now that you've mentioned the 4-7-11 phenomenon. We've just gone past the 1 hour mark, so we still got 6 more to go. If we really want to make this an effective video for the person who's watching this right now, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've got all day. I mean, I'm happy to keep chatting if you want.
Absolutely. But I viscerally believe so many people don't quite understand that people come to the internet to get information. And if you're the person that's helping them with that information, then they get to know you, like you, and trust you. And if you're doing that at a pace and at a rate where it's comfortable for you and also digestible for the audience, people will actually do business with you. And you've managed to actually do that. Not only did you end up in the ClickFunnels 2 Comma Club, but you've actually built a system that lets you enjoy life fully. Because like what we're doing right now, we've frozen a moment in time where we're recording this 1 hour piece of content that can be chopped up into little bite sizes, and you can literally fulfill that 4-7-11 scenario from just this 1 hour of work. And you've done that by just working maybe 3 days a week, so to speak. What would you say to somebody who still feels and believes in the hustle culture and constant hustle in their business and, run, Gary V in 2014?
That's a really good question. I believe that you can't avoid hard work, right? That's the thing. I'm a massive proponent against this kind of idea that's popped up. Well, it's not popped up. It's been there for a long time, but it just seems to, it keeps having a resurgence, which is this whole like do no work, passive income stuff. And I kind of don't like it from an online perspective, because we all know that it doesn't exist the way that it gets portrayed. And like a lot of people, it appeals to their need for instant gratification. And so they'll think, oh yeah, I'll tick this box and money will come out. And like, it just doesn't happen like that, right? It's going to take work. And even the ones like where you're getting recurring income, there's still all sorts of things. There's maintenance, there's taxes, blah, blah, follow-ups. And like, it still involves work and whatnot. And I think people trying to avoid that, it's going to lead to dismal failure, because you have to be able to be willing to apply yourself and work hard. But having said that, for example, at the moment, like my wife and I, we just got back from a couple of weeks in New Zealand where we hardly worked at all. But now we're working a lot, right? So this particular chapter, I'm going to work a lot, and I've got some family coming over later on in December. So therefore, I probably won't work that much. We had a month off in April, went for a cruise to Japan. And again, I hardly worked. It was maybe 10 to 12 hours. Not that I clocked particular time that I was working, but for the entire month, it wasn't really much work done. And so, of course, that's what I portray on social media. And I'm not saying, like, I'm usually pretty upfront saying, I do actually work quite a lot. But I think sometimes what happens is we might follow someone online. We might follow an influencer and go, oh, look at them swanning all around the world and doing their thing and blah, blah. And we've kind of forget that on the other side of that, there's tons of work, there's tons of energy, there's tons of like consumption of information and application of that information. And that's what most of the times it's shown. I can see behind you, you've got what looks like hundreds of books. But that's what people don't really consider, is that in order to stay ahead in the game, you need to be a student of the game. You need to like keep bringing on that knowledge, and not just knowledge, I think, because let's face it, like with AI, knowledge is absolutely everywhere. But I think what people tend to look for more so is the stories that unfolds for particular people. So stories and insights that they can get within their own consciousness, their own mindset. And I think those are perhaps even deeper than just knowledge-based stuff as well. So anyway, I forgive me, I forgot what your original question was. I kind of went off on a tangent then. Sorry.
That's all right, Jamie. No, Jamie. Obviously, people that are watching this are intrigued, and they're looking at you, enamored by your demeanor, who you are, and you kind of resemble my homeboy, Frank Kern. In the way that
really?
your humor just.
Yes.
Was that a lifelong goal? That
I've heard that a couple of times, but it's the most flattering thing, because I think he's got a few things figured out, that guy. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Now, where can people get a hold of you there, Jamie?
Yeah, so probably the easiest way is if I hit up my website, or one of them, which is monetizeyourtribe.com. And Prosper happy to leave a link or whatever if that's easier. But got a free community. There's a newsletter you can sign up to there if you want to get access to some of the things I'm teaching. But yeah, that's probably the easiest way. There's a couple of free guides and different things there as well we can download. So it's
Absolutely.
best
Now,
way.
Jamie, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on the call today, but it will be remiss for me to not ask this. You've introduced us to your wife. If you're comfortable, what's your wife's name?
Renata.
Renate. Now, Renate really played a very pivotal role in the shaping of Jamie for the person who
Yep.
we now know. I mean, yes, you've got all these 2 accolades, but you were almost bankrupt at some point,
Yeah.
and she was there, took care of everything else, and all you did was pay lunch for $84, which I don't think is enough for for all the
But
things that
hang
she
on.
that she
I,
did for you. Jamie, don't walk away from this one. I want you to literally looking front and center in the camera. If you could tell Jamie something that you've never told her before, based on who she's become and who she was for you, that nobody else managed or can even understand. If you could give us that opportunity.
me directing to my wife.
Yeah,
She's
absolutely.
actually just over in the corner there. I can go get her if you. No, I'm kidding. I only. Oh man, that's an interesting one. I would say, and I have said this to her many times as well. But one of the things that makes our relationship work extremely well is she allows me and affords me the freedom for me to be me. And I think that is one of the greatest freedoms that you can offer someone because it's very hard to change someone, and she's learned that because I'm hard to change, I guess. But that's the biggest thing. She allowed me to fulfill this dream, and the story didn't end there. I just wanted to make this abundantly clear in case there's any people in your audience going, "This guy's a bit of a weirdo." But what happened was my first goal was when I hit that first $1,000 a day. My first goal was like I have to get her out of the workforce if she chooses to. If she doesn't, if she wants to keep working, absolutely fine. But I want to make sure that we have a big enough cash flow so that if she chooses not to work, she doesn't have to. And that happened between November 2019 when I had my first, late October 2019 when I had my first 1K day. But by March, she was off work. So it took about 4 months. And she was meant to have a career break. And then towards the end of the career break, I was like, well, I need help. So she started helping me. And then a couple of years later, I said, I think if you continue helping me, then you're going to lose a sense of your own identity. Why don't we use the skills that we've developed over these years to build your own business, which I've been able to help her with. And now she's got a business which unfortunately far surpasses mine at the moment, which is doing incredibly well. So yeah, very, very, very proud of her. So yeah, bless her.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for going there with us because obviously it's the people in our lives that obviously shape who we later on become. And especially mom, introducing you to the mouse. And look at you now. You're part of the 2 Club and even more. I mean, obviously that was just a milestone, but I know you've gone on and done a whole lot more other things. So for those that are now intrigued with your story and everything else that comes along with it, they know where to continue to connect with you. I'll put all those links in the show notes. But what's next? What can we now expect from Jamie? What things can we really anticipate moving into the future?
Oh man, that's a great question. So I think I mentioned sort of offline that I going through a few changes in my business. I realized some time back that like having worked with I say 917. I actually think it's probably close to 1,000 now. I lost count a long time ago, but I've worked with a lot of students. And at some stage, I've felt like I can either continue down this path or I can start to diversify because I love the absorption of new information and new challenges, new projects, things like that. So I am still coaching, still got coaching students, still helping folks out. I've actually got a cohort that I'm releasing soon for December, which is going to be a lot of fun. But I'm also building out newsletters. So that's my latest project, and so far it's gone pretty well, and yeah, just super happy. So that's where I'm heading. Looking to create assets. Like I say, my wife has, well, now two businesses that she's just in infancy that she's building. Other one's going pretty solid. So we are aiming to have a couple more of these things and diversify our income streams. And yeah, looking to move to New Zealand next year, back to my home country, and eventually build my own little tiny dream house and live a very humble life with chickens and dogs and veggie garden. That's about it.
Absolutely. Well, that whole life has gone full circle, from the high flying derivative trading person to somebody who wants to get derivatives from chickens. It's
It's an awesome, love that.
But Jamie, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I mean, obviously we went through the triumphs, the setbacks, and those priceless lessons of resilience and just the pure simplicity of it all. I mean, for somebody who's rubbed shoulders with really, really, high flyers, you were humble enough to grace us with your presence on the Online Prosperity Show, and I don't take that lightly. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for having me, and yeah, hopefully got some value out of today's talk anyway. So appreciate it. Thanks, Prosper.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people should be lining up to pay for this. I mean, your story is just a testament of what's possible when you really combine, first of all, the right mindset with the right strategies, and are willing to go all the way. Like you said earlier on, if you're hitting rock bottom, if you can look up, you can get up. And, it's just one of those things that, did I sound like Les Brown there?
You did. Yeah, it's awesome, actually. I love it that you catch yourself mid-sentence.
Yeah, exactly. You can imagine. Yeah, there
Yeah.
I am. But for those that are watching right now, I think if you found value in this particular episode, first of all, I'd encourage you to maybe hit the replay button. Not only am I saying we need to hit the quarter of the 4-7-11 that Jamie mentioned, but I think it is for you to really catch those golden nuggets you might have missed the first time around. Because normally when you're listening to an episode, you look at how long it's going to take you to go through it, and you just invest in that particular time without actually really paying attention to what's actually happening. But if you got everything that you want from this particular episode, why don't you share this episode with somebody who needs a little bit of motivation, a little bit of inspiration on their own journey to creating a business that's profitable and enjoyable. You would have done just the one thing, that could make this world a better place. Because if that person goes on and creates a business that then forms or comes up with the cure for cancer, it's all you that would have actually made that happen. So why don't you hit that share button in order for you to do your part for today. And that could be the only job you really needed to do today. And if you're inclined to hear more stories of resilience and how to go through any setbacks that people or you might be having in your life, why don't you watch the next episode? I bet the person I'm talking to has a bigger story, a bigger heart, and even bigger ideas that you can use so you can create a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Until next time, keep pursuing greatness. Bye for now.